Now the Distinguished Educator Award. This award recognizes outstanding achievement in education by a Bowdoin alumnus in any field and at any level of education. This year, we recognize Cal Mackenzie of the class of 1967. Cal, will you please join me? G. Calvin Mackenzie, Goldfarb Family Distinguished Professor of American Government Emeritus at Colby College. Over your extraordinary 4-decade career as an educator, you've made a deep and lasting impact on generations of students, public servants, and the American public at large. A beloved teacher whose courses in government, particularly on the American presidency, were among the most popular across the curriculum. You balanced excellent teaching, influential scholarship, and meaningful public service at the highest level of your 41-year career. The federal government has frequently called on your expertise in presidential transitions and appointments. You served as senior advisor to both Presidential Appointee Initiative and the National Commission on Public Service, and as a visiting fellow at the Brookings Institution. In addition, you served as the John Adams Fellow at the Institute of United States Studies at the University of London, as a Fulbright professor at Beijing Foreign Studies University in China, and as a Fulbright lecturer at the Vietnamese Academy of Social Sciences in Hanoi, and you've been elected a fellow of the National Academy of Public Administration. And somehow, you even found time to serve as a member of Bowdoin's Board of Trustees. For your extraordinary contributions to the field of government as an inspiring teacher, influential scholar, engaging writer, and skillful practitioner, we are pleased to present you the 2019 Distinguished Educator Award. Congratulations.
Good morning. I am deeply grateful to the Alumni Council for this extraordinary tribute. And I'm especially pleased to join my classmates Dick Pike and Doug Bicklin and my good friend Dick Whitmore of the class of 1965, who are previous recipients of this award. It's a great honor to march in that proud company. There are 2 other people here this morning who have contributed mightily to my understanding of effective teaching through hours and hours and hours of conversation about that topic. One is my wife, Sally Mackenzie, long a beloved high school teacher and then professor of educational leadership at the University of Maine. The other is my brother, John Mackenzie, who spent his entire career in independent schools, including 22 years as head of schools in Massachusetts and Ohio. He and I have talked and argued about our profession for decades. John is here today celebrating the 50th reunion of his class, the great class of 1969. I know a cheap applause line when I see one, I'll tell you. I've always believed that teaching is a craft. It's a craft that one keeps learning and refining over a lifetime spent in classrooms and in conversations with students and colleagues. And my exposure to that craft began in earnest right here when I was a student at Bowdoin in the 1960s. I'd begun to think that maybe when I graduated I would be a high school teacher. And so I began to watch my professors at Bowdoin to see how they managed their classrooms and how they related to students. And there were some fabulous role models here. Roger Howell and Herbie Brown and Dan Levine and Bill Whiteside and so many others. And they were all different in the way they practiced their craft, and that was really my first most important lesson, that there is no single model of effective teaching. Let 1,000 flowers bloom. Let us figure out what we're good at and then pour our passions into that. The core of teaching and learning, in my mind, is the relationship between one teacher and one student. But no 2 students are alike. They're a widely diverse group of people. The key to reaching them, to teaching them, it has always seemed to me, is to respect their diversity their differences in background and culture and learning styles, and to connect with them on some common meeting ground. This is what I cherished about my education at Bowdoin. Let me illustrate. When I was a young government major at Bowdoin, I had the good fortune to come under the tutelage, one might even say under the wing, of Professor John Donovan. John came to Bowdoin in my sophomore year, fresh from service in the Kennedy and Johnson administration in Washington and full of the passions of that time, which carried over into his classes. And I took several of those classes with John, and he supervised, I might say quite demandingly, my senior honors thesis at Bowdoin. And one day in the fall of 1966, he asked if I could stop by his office on the second floor of Hubbard Hall. I didn't know why. I came to his office, and I sat in the green leather chair in the corner where I always sat when we met in that office. And he looked at me. John didn't do small talk. He looked at me and he said, "Have you ever thought about being a college professor?" It caught me off guard, and I mumbled a little bit, and I said, "No, not really. Why?" He said, "Well, I think you should consider it. I think you'd be good at it." That conversation changed my life. I did think about it. I did pursue it. And John helped me through the graduate school application process. And when I later returned to Maine as a college professor, John and I became great friends. And in the fall of 1984, in what was to be his last year of teaching, John suffered a heart attack on the campus and died instantly on his way to class. That left his two Bowdoin classes with no teacher halfway through the semester. Al Fuchs, who was the dean of the faculty at the time, called me and asked if there was any way I could possibly come down and take over those classes and fill in for the rest of the semester. And there was, of course, no way I could say no to that request. And when I had individual meetings with students, I met them in what had been John's office in Hubbard Hall. And when the last student left at night and it got quiet in there, I would look at that green leather chair in the corner, and I would think how lucky I was to have been at Bowdoin at that time. How lucky I was to be the focus of John Donovan's caring concern, to be told by a man I so respected that I should think about being a college professor because he thought I'd be good at it. Well, I'll leave it to the 5,000 students I taught in my career to decide whether he was right or not. But John, if you're up there listening today, our college has given me a really nice award, so you might have been onto something.